Let's get right to Dan Hoard. He's been scrambling around already on this Monday morning, despite the fact that he had a lot going on yesterday. Obviously, the Bengals game. Dan, your overall impression, thanks for your time as always. We were talking earlier, I'm curious from your point of view, it looked like there was a lot of sort of vanilla poking and prodding kind of thing by both teams, knowing they more than likely were going to meet again this week. Did you feel that way broadcasting the game?
Definitely after the Bengals took the 17-0 lead. I thought they really went vanilla at that point, and it showed. They had 10 drives after that. They kicked one field goal, 7 punts, a lost fumble, a 4th and 1 where they didn't get the first down. So the offense was pretty lousy for the last 10 drives. I do think they went vanilla, and I hope that's the reason why they performed so poorly after getting off to a fast start.
Well, I mean, Joe Burrow admitted he missed some throws, and he had a couple of touchdown throws that he missed, and we never see Burrow do that. And he's proven in college and in the pros in a short amount of time that the bigger the stage, the better he is. I want to start, though, with Alex Kappa. Is this potentially another guy who's gone for the rest of the year or at least another week?
I would be shocked if he could play this week based on how things looked and how the guy sounded after the game. My fear is that it's for the rest of the playoffs. And man, the timing could not be worse. They made it through 15 games where the same 5 guys started, all 15 on the offensive line. The right tackle goes down against the Patriots, La'el Collins, and now the right guard goes down in the final game of the regular season against Baltimore. So the notion of having Max Sharping and Hakeem Adeniji next to each other, really for the first time to open postseason play, is a rough way to go into the playoffs, to say the least.
What's your confidence level of these guys? I mean, Adeniji, there was talk he was not even going to start 2 weeks ago, that they were going to bring Isaiah Prince back in there. They decided to go with Adeniji. In the 2 games that you've seen him, well, really a game and less than a quarter, to be fair, he did play a lot last year. What's your confidence level? What are his strengths?
He's got good feet. He's a good athlete. He's got short arms, unfortunately, for the tackle position, which is why they tried him at guard last year. I do think he's played better at tackle than he did last year at guard. I think he's been okay in the games that he's played, because he played most of that New England game after La'el Collins went down. So I think he's been all right, adequate, certainly not as good as LC. As for Max Sharping, at least he's played a lot before. He had 33 starts with the Houston Texans, so at least you're not plugging in a guy who's going to be overwhelmed. He's got a lot of experience. He's a sharp guy. It's part of his last name, but that's kind of his reputation. He's certainly going to know what he's doing out there, but Alex Kappa was their best offensive lineman this year. So if he is, in fact, done for the postseason, that would be a huge blow.
I asked Brian Billick a little while ago, Dan. He was filling in. You probably saw him yesterday up in the press box level, calling the game for Ravens radio. And he's proven over years and years and years that he doesn't see things necessarily through purple-colored glasses, so to speak. I asked him if he thought there was some dirty play by the Ravens on offense yesterday. Those were some of the comments, without naming names or particular situations, that were coming out of the Bengals locker room yesterday. From where you sat broadcasting the game, did you feel like there was some extra stuff going on there?
I didn't see anything specific, but there was a lot of post-play pushing and shoving that was happening throughout the game. So it's always hard to tell who starts it when that's the case. But the Bengals don't speak out the way they did after this game. And I thought Jay Morrison had some really good comments from the players in his story in The Athletic this morning. They don't speak out like that unless something happened. So, again, I didn't specifically see it. It's hard to see stuff like that when you're watching the game from press box level. But I have no doubt that it happened based on how candid the Bengals players were in talking about it after the game.
You know, somebody made the point, Dan, I'm curious if you agree with this. Someone made the point that John Harbaugh must believe that the Ravens are better than the Bengals by the sheer fact that they had a chance to get a home playoff game, depending on the coin flip, and they won yesterday. But he comes into Cincinnati knowing all that's on the line, He sits down Dobbins. He sits down Andrews. He sits down Zeitler. And we know Lamar Jackson's not in there. But he still feels like, okay, we're not conceding the game, but we might be kind of conceding the game. And we'll take our chances with that team next week with everybody back. You buy that at all?
Not at all. I don't know how you would take one and come to the conclusion that John Harbaugh thinks that the Ravens are better. I think that the guys we're talking about have some sort of injury or have overcome injury during the course of the year, which is the case with J.K. Dobbins. He's only been back for 4 games after missing a chunk of the season. So I think between players on the Ravens team that didn't want to play because they're dealing with injuries, in Lamar Jackson's case, it's hard to tell what's going on there. They don't seem to know in Baltimore. He's missed the last 5 games. So I didn't take it that way at all, that John Harbaugh thought his team is better than Cincinnati. I think that he's trying to put his team in the best possible position to pull off an upset next week.
I'm curious, Dan, and you work for the team. I always preface my comments before I ask you certain questions when it comes to do with the franchise itself. I thought Katie Blackburn did a marvelous job going to bat for this franchise and that whole owner's vote last week. Clearly, Zach Taylor, who you rarely see sort of step out of the diplomatic mode. He's a very diplomatic, close to the vest kind of guy, but clearly he was very upset about the rules that were changed here right before the playoffs. There's nothing you can do about it now, but does he made the comment that it shows that ownership is fully in support of the plight of the coaches and the players and all that kind of thing. Did you get that feeling it trickled down from top to bottom after last Friday?
Sure, because Katie's on that committee and she fought very hard for the NFL not to just randomly change the rules. Randomly is the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying. The NFL does not make rule changes a week before the playoffs. Everything is considered. Everything is discussed, and then they make rule changes in the offseason. And that's what the Bengals were fighting for. The rules already existed for the potential of some teams playing a different number of games than other teams. Those rules are written in the book. You can read them online. It's available on the NFL website. So that's the Bengals' contention. And there was a scenario where the Bengals could have benefited if they had wound up playing a neutral site AFC Championship game against Kansas City. So there was one tiny sliver of a chance that the change that the NFL made last week could have helped them out. But that wasn't their point. Their point is you ask us to follow every other rule in the book. And now because of this situation, you are changing the rules in a way that most likely could hurt us. So that was their bone of contention. I think the coaches and players appreciated the fact that Katie did everything in her power to try to make sure that the NFL didn't do that.
All right, Dan, I want to ask you this before I let you go. You watch this team play, every single game for years and years and years. We know what they did last year. They had a home playoff game against the Raiders, had to go on the road and beat Tennessee, go on the road and beat Kansas City. Here you have the Ravens on Sunday night. In theory, you'd have to go to Buffalo. You'd have to go to Kansas City. When you compare the two teams last year and what is facing potentially this team this year, which one is a tougher road? The one they faced last year or the one they're potentially facing this go-round?
Well, the opponents would be more difficult this year, not necessarily in the first playoff game, but going on the road to Buffalo, to me, seems much more challenging than going on the road last year to Tennessee when Derrick Henry hadn't played for an extended period of time, and the Titans were not that great anyway. They were good. Obviously, they battered Joe Burrow in the course of that game, but last year's Tennessee team as a number 1 seed is not as good as this year's Buffalo team as a number 2 seed. Kansas City, I think it's about the same last year as this year. So I guess the big difference would be the second game if the Bengals are fortunate enough to win on Sunday night and if Buffalo takes care of business against Miami.
All right, Danny, as always, thanks for your time. I know you're crazy busy with everything going on with UC basketball now and into the Bengals, but you will be there on Sunday night, my man. It's a big-time game. Good luck to you, and thanks for your time, buddy.
Yeah, my pleasure. Sorry I was a little bit late. Look forward to joining you again.
Come on, we're grateful to have you. Thank you so much, Dan Hoard, voice of the Bearcats, voice of the Cincinnati Bengals.